We are not alone. They are among us. As the skies light up, they believe we are blissfully unaware. But this activity by non-human extraterrestrial technology is capturing the attention of humans.
My name is Dale, and I want to welcome you to my channel, Observer of Anomalous Objects. Really grateful that you're here. If you haven't done it yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Help the channel out by sharing this episode as well, sharing the channel, sharing this episode, and don't forget to hit that thumbs up. That helps us with the algorithm as well. Well, I want to give you a hook. I want to give you something to look forward to. And so my question to you is, what happens when you ask the universe to wave at you? And we're gonna talk about that in a little bit. Sean's gonna answer that question for us, but I'm gonna start off with a video, because one of the things we're gonna talk about is a 2004 Nimitz Tic Tac event, and so I'm gonna go ahead and put a video here to kind of set the stage for that.
Extraterrestrials making contact with Earth, or is it something else?
How about this 2004 Nimitz report we got? This next hit. Let's open it up. We are going to use the same methodology here that I use in my conflict analysis. So before we can determine whether extraterrestrials have contacted mankind, we must first eliminate terrestrial technology as a source for what we see happening in our airspace. And the 2004 Nimitz incident is the best evidence we have to begin to answer that question.
Look at this. It's incredible.
It is absolutely... There it goes.
Look at that.
In 2004, the USS Nimitz aircraft carrier was stationed off the coast of San Diego, California, when one of the ship's fighter jets engaged a strange object in the sky, capturing footage of the incident on its infrared camera.
This is not some crazy person with their cell phone on Instagram, right? This is a $15 billion aircraft carrier with its radar systems, everything state of the art. What is that?
We went out there primarily to do individual ship training. I started noticing these really anomalous tracks, unlike nothing I'd ever seen before. And these objects were coming into my radar coverage. There was probably 10 objects in the sky.
10.
Wow. In the back of my mind, I was thinking, I want to intercept one of these things. And so I launched an intercept aircraft. He started making the approach to this object, and that's when everything changed. Well, this thing did a barrel roll around his aircraft.
Really?
Then went straight down to the surface of the ocean. He went following it down, and as soon as he went like that, this thing popped straight back out of the water, back up to 28,000 feet.
What? Did it make a sound?
No, it's completely quiet. You know, something going that fast, it's gonna sound like boom, 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 boom. It's gonna have a whole bunch of sonic booms. No sonic booms.
Can you talk us through the technology that you witnessed?
If you can imagine a 47-foot-long Tic Tac, they didn't have any wings, they didn't have any propulsion system. They could travel from point A to point B in a matter of a second, even though it was miles and miles and miles away. And if anything biological would have been in that thing, given Newtonian physics, classical physics, it would have turned you into mush. There's no way you could withstand that type of G-force. I think the human body can withstand about 8 Gs. This thing had 1,350 Gs. You'd have been paced.
It literally gives me chills listening to this.
I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary. The fact that we have military personnel that witnessed multiple objects, and not only were they eyewitnesses personally, but we have it on official DoD video, it doesn't get better than that.
Well, that was an incredible video, and it really sets the stage for the first part of our interview. Today we got we have Sean Cahill on, and I'd like to go ahead and read his biography real quick, if you don't mind. Sean Cahill is a retired U.S. Navy Chief Master at Arms and an investigative filmmaker, best known for his connections to the 2004 USS Princeton UAP encounter within the USS Nimitz carrier strike group. Drawing on a naval career that included law enforcement, anti-terrorism, and security operations, he later became one of the military witnesses whose testimony helped elevate public awareness of unidentified anomalous phenomenon. Cahill has appeared in documentary programming such as Unidentified, Inside America's UFO Investigations, and participates in ongoing media discussions about national security, technology, and the implications of UAP. Today, he remains an advocate for transparency and thoughtful inquiry while pursuing creative projects that explore human consciousness and cultural perspectives on the unknown. And so, without any further ado, I'm going to bring Sean on. Sean, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Dale. It's good to be here.
Yeah. You might want to move the mic a little bit closer. I know the volume's just a little bit low for some reason. We had one heck of a conversation a week ago or so. I can't remember exactly when it was, but if we could have recorded that, that would have been lightning in a bottle. I'm telling you what.
I think we covered the whole map.
Yeah. So how have you been? What's been going on with your life lately? That you want to share?
I'm good. I focus on family a lot, and that's going really well. We're pretty happy. Professionally, I work with a company called Nanu on a social media app to bring experiencers together and other people who are interested in the unknown. We're in our second phase of that, and we're quite happy with the results and our the response so far.
So this is the app you're talking about. I was going to do it at the end, but since you brought it up, we might as well. Can you kind of explain the app a little bit to help people understand what it's all about?
Sure. Nanu, Network for Advancing New Understandings, is a social media application that allows people to post their own experiences. It gives you an opportunity to interface with the inherent AI in the program. If you're not that great at writing, it can help you write your account. It can help interview you as if a law enforcement or, say, a government official might interview you in the same way to get the same kind of information. And it tries to get as much information about your case as it can to help you present your case as a post, and then that post can be voted on by other people for credibility. They can connect with you if they've had similar experiences, comment and discuss. And we have other features on there as well that are evolving, but the main reason was to bring people who are interested in the unknown and that have had unknown experiences together, where they could talk about it without any middlemen, without any government influence, without worrying about the ads on the other social media apps or the other subjects, etc. It was a place where they could go and find each other in a way that they understood and expand their experience.
Is it a safe place to go? Because even on X, even in a community where it's supposed to be safe, experiencers get ripped apart all the time. So is Nanu better in that sense?
Absolutely. We have it built in that we're looking out for the end user. We're not there. We have no ad revenue. We're not taking money. We're not giving information. We're not pipelining anything back to anyone. Your personal information can be completely anonymous, or it can be as detailed as you like. Either way, it's never going to leave the platform from us. As far as protecting more at-risk groups, especially those who are underage or younger or perhaps disabled or might not be able to make their own decisions properly. We have those same checks and balances in there, and our moderators are always on the lookout to make sure that it is a place where everyone, no matter the experience you had, has a chance to share that without ridicule.
Hollywood was the one who mentioned it to me, and so I've got an account. I posted several of my podcasts on it now to try to support it and also try to get the podcast out there to people. Well, let's go ahead and begin with our first question. As a Master at Arms, Chief Master at Arms on the USS Princeton, can you walk us through, the Nimitz Tic-Tac event and kind of how it unfolded?
For a lot of people who served, they might think it was unusual that a Master at Arms was on the bridge for anything other than a judicial proceeding. But at the time, I was part of the navigation department, and my department head had asked me if I could fill a hole, and I thought it was a great opportunity for me to learn about navigation and other things. So that's why I was up there to begin with. But that week we were out on a workup. We were doing basically checks and balances for our upcoming deployment with the afloat training group. We were, I believe, at the time that I really clued into what was going on, we were off of San Nicolas Island, south of Catalina, and Senior Chief Kevin Day, who was in that previous segment that you showed, had called me up on the bridge and basically told me that hey, we've got a lot of unknown radar contacts coming in. Can you have your lookouts be very vigilant? And he'd call back later and ask me to steer the ship on a certain vector or keep it in a certain direction so they could utilize the radar, really fine tune it at exactly whatever they were looking at. And I had a little bit of leeway where I was because we were doing anti-submarine operations, so I had to stay in a little box. But Kevin called me and told me about this, and I have my lookouts scanning the sky and everything. This went on for a few days. We kept talking about it. Then finally, the evening before they got the gun camera footage, he called me on the bridge, and he was pleading with me to make sure that my, kind of a, hey, make sure your guys are really doing their job thing out there. Get on each of them and lay eyes on them, make sure that they're alert. And as I started to do that, I went out on the port side bridge wing and spoke to the watchstander out there and spoke to everyone else on the sound powered phones. And at that point, he and I started scanning the horizon, and he was using the big eyes. I was just using a pair of regular binoculars. When I got up off the port bow at about 45 degrees, about 2,000 feet, there were 5 to 7, and I can't say for sure, could have been 6, really bright white lights in the sky. It was at nighttime. It was around 2200 or 10 o'clock. Completely clear sky, starlight. We had no flares in the area. We had no aircraft up. I do not know what these lights were. I watched them all spiral very quickly into the center of the formation they were in and blink out one at a time. And I turned to the other watchstander, incredulous, and exclaimed to him, "Did you see that?" And he said, yes, I did. When I went inside to go call Kevin, I realized that their watch down in Combat Information Center, which was on a slightly different schedule than ours at the time, had already changed over. So Kevin had gone to bed, and I didn't think that the lieutenant that was standing the desk at the moment was going to be interested. So I saved it until the morning. And it was that morning when we woke up, and when I came out to the chief's mess to get coffee, that's when Kevin and some other chiefs shared with me that the gun camera footage had been obtained. We went back into the lounge and booted up the computer that we had on the SIPRNet and viewed the video together. And as a group, we were incredulous to a man as to what it was. We had differing opinions as to whether or not it was our tech or their tech per se, but none of us understood exactly what it was. A couple of guys assumed it was DARPA. A couple of guys immediately assumed it was aliens. Kevin and I discussed how this was an event to rival Roswell, and we expected to pull back into port to see this as front page news. But when we pulled back in, there was nothing. Just a few rumors from that I heard from crew members that I knew on the Nimitz that this had occurred. We never spoke about it again on board Princeton, other than rumor and scuttlebutt. It was put to bed very quickly. So were you contacted by anyone, or is it just the story just kind of got killed? Didn't they come in and take some of the tapes or something like that? That's according to Petty Officer Gary Voorhees. He says that on the evening of the event, after the gun camera footage was obtained, that I believe he said plainclothes personnel flew on board and met with the captain and took possession of the what we tend to call the radar tapes. Not being a radar tech, I couldn't even tell you if they're tapes or if they're discs or what they are. But in general, the electronic record of the events was removed. Since then, Freedom of Information Act requests for the watch bills that I specifically wrote for the other watchstanders, as well as the deck logs, are all also missing from the archives where they should be held. That seems really strange, though, because you guys really thought, it was like one of these Roswell events, and it just kind of disappeared. So why do you think that happened? Well, it really, a lot of things come back to a binary decision. If you think it was ours or theirs, ours being human tech and theirs being non-human tech, not indicating a third-party national. Because if that was the case, we would have, if we believed for a moment that was a third nation non-ally doing that, terrestrial ally, we'd be in very serious trouble. I believe that our response would have been near catastrophic to try to stop something of that enormous of a threat before it had a chance to evolve further. So then you've got the other two groups of folks that, okay, maybe it's really super classified tech that we were testing. And for me, that just doesn't scan. We had come out of scandals in the late 90s where we had done counter-terror operations against our own forces, blue on blue. People ended up getting hurt, getting fired. Some went to prison for connections with it. And when we had come out of a scandal era. So using tactics and other things against your own service is a no-no. You can't do that. So it just seems very strange to me that they would that if that were the case, that the logistics would have been so messed up that suddenly now you have 5,000 potential witnesses to something that you wanted none. So it leads me to lean towards esoteric or non-human technology. And I hate to say that even in today's day and age of disclosure advocacy, I do understand why a government would keep these things secret. I do understand why they would continue to keep them secret and find it hard to eventually tell the truth. But it doesn't change the fact that this does seem to be near epidemic in proportions at this point to how it's spread across the globe, how much it manifests and how much we see it. I mean, we're at the point now where we're having, congressional hearings on it that have become almost routine. So the question is are the implications that lie on the other side of the question of are we alone and what is consciousness and where are we and what are we? If they're that shocking, I'm not sure how we're going to get to where we need to get with the current system. The current system seems hell-bent on maintaining itself, not maintaining a improvement in society or in culture.
We're going to cover that in the second section. So when this happened, what was your first instinct? Was this like, this is a threat, or was it a matter of curiosity?
For me, it was pure curiosity. At the very beginning, in the weeks surrounding the event, I was pretty sure, like many others, that this was a UFO. But as the way the chain of command responded to it in such a lackadaisical manner on board the ship, it was really brushed off simply. It wasn't exciting to our captain or to the other officers. They had jobs to do. When we returned, there was nothing in the news. We weren't told not to talk about it, but it was one of those things where, hey, I was in the middle of a career. I'm not going to talk about this crazy stuff in public. I've got another 10 years to go before retirement. So I told a handful of friends and family. So it was no surprise in 2017 when Lou Elizondo came out in the New York Times with it. But that went easy for me. But as time went by, I too changed my mind and assumed it must be advanced tech of our own that we were testing, or that perhaps the logistics did get screwed up in the battle. They didn't think the battle group was out there, or somebody didn't check their email, because no one seemed to care. To me, it seemed life-changing and world-changing. The implications had meaning for 8 billion people, but it didn't seem like it in the end.
Yeah. How many, if you could make a guess just on the Princeton alone, I'm guessing about 300 sailors.
I think we were at about 430 at that time. We might have been down closer to 400 since we get a big influx before deployment.
I was thinking when I was on the Fife, we had about 300. That's why I was roughly guessing that. So you guys had 1,500
to 4,000 on the Nimitz.
So how many on the Princeton do you think knew about the Tic Tac?
Probably about 100, because of the entire chief's mess, the entire wardroom, who are the commissioned officers. We all knew about it because we were all carbon copied on the emails that were going back and forth. Our operations officer, Teresa Elders, had carbon copied basically the khakis, as we call them, on all of the information going back and forth between her and the operations officer on board USS Nimitz. And what a lot of people don't realize is in that email string, the two of them and their colleagues, who are all college graduates, Annapolis graduates, chemical engineers, scientists, etc. They're, they don't have liberal arts degrees. These people were discussing, what could this be? Could it be temperature inversions? Could it be murmurations of birds? Could it be, numerous other things, weather balloons, swamp gas, what have you, as we like to say. And they couldn't come up with a single thing. It didn't match anything but a solid object under intelligent control.
Okay. So when you saw the data, you heard the reports, what was it that made you, think, because you said initially you thought this isn't ours, this isn't, Russia's, this isn't China's. What was it about them that made you think that they were other?
I've always, even if I haven't always acknowledged anomalous experience in my life, I've always been an absolute aerospace and science fiction nerd. So if there was a means of propelling an aircraft, if there was a way of getting into space, I had read about it, I knew about it. I know that makes me sound like a know-it-all, but I knew that I knew where the current level of theoretical work was, and we didn't have anti-gravity. We weren't anywhere close to it yet. The idea of propulsion without control surfaces or a power plant, etc., there was no way that we were there yet. What we were in the hypersonic speeds, the instantaneous acceleration, now we can put labels on them, but we knew that what we were looking at was a UFO. And if it wasn't, then we had certainly made a huge leap forward in technology.
Well, the surprising thing for me when I hear this story, and I know the critics probably jumped all over it, is the fact that you got 100 people that told, their family members. And so you would think that the media would have picked up on it. So, with that as the setting, how validating was it for you guys when the video broke?
Oh, it was incredible. It was really incredible. I was lucky enough to have a group of people around me that knew me and knew my flavor of BS, if that makes sense. And they didn't think that this matched what would normally be characteristic for me. And I told it in such detail, and they had met other people from the ship that were able to corroborate it, so they knew it wasn't just coming from me. So I was lucky in that aspect. There were rumors. I did talk to people, some people who had spouses on the Nimitz, who even before this had all come to light in 2017, and we heard about about Petty Officer Voorhees telling us that the tapes were absconded with. I was told, in fact, 2 weeks after the event, when I spoke to a friend, that security he stated, again, this is hearsay, but he stated that security had sequestered certain pilots and were told to guard them in their staterooms until personnel arrived on board Nimitz from the mainland to question them. That's not anywhere in any of the official reports that I'm aware of. I've never heard that corroborated, but it does fit when you think about what Petty Officer Voorhees was saying, that there were elements of some agency that came and took the data.
Maybe those that were closest, like the pilots that were closest to the sightings. Jules had a question. She says, have these emails been FOIA'd?
I don't know. I haven't FOIA'd them. That's a very good question. They should still exist in the archive.
Okay. All right. That's a good question. Now, one of the things that makes this event kind of unique is the fact that you had radar, you had eyewitnesses, people seeing with their own eyes, and then you had the pilots as well. And so with all of this sensory data, I mean, where would you rank this all time as far as, something that has this much evidence and credibility? Where would you rank this?
I have referred to the Tic Tac event as being the most well-documented case in history, only because of the things that you just mentioned. If we had physical evidence, all of the physical evidence from 1947 in Roswell, and knew exactly what happened, I would probably push that above Tic Tac. But it's very hard to debunk Tic Tac. It was not a balloon, and it was not a conventional aircraft. Ergo, what was it? And if you can make your way around the 5 observables, then you're a better physicist than I.
Yeah. One thing I love that you mentioned, and I even wrote it down, was scuttlebutt, because having been in the Navy, I know very well what scuttlebutt is. Scuttlebutt is a story that starts off at one point, and by the time it gets to the end, it doesn't look anything like it was originally. And that's what I said, the video and the fact that you had the radar returns, you had the pilots and stuff like that, just makes this a really powerful event. So kind of walk us through we walked us through a little bit of it. Now I want you to kind of on the emotional side of it, what you were seeing and what you were feeling when all of this stuff was going on. I mean, how did that hit you?
It's funny because you might think if you knew me now that I would have a lot to say about that. But at the time, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And then I kind of looked around and saw that no one else seemed to care. Me and Kevin and just a handful of people were even discussing it. My family wasn't interested. My friends, again, everybody was kind to me, but no one was really interested. Wasn't their priority. I let go of it pretty quick. I think that had a lot to do with me deciding that it was probably DARPA.
Well, it reminds me of what Kevin Day supposedly said to the captain. Well, they're going to ask us why we were so uninterested about this. And yet what you're saying is that seems to be the mindset. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand when you have something that extraordinary, how people can be that disinterested in it. I mean, isn't that crazy?
I think for a lot of us, it's not, I'm not proud to say this, but I think for many of us, we can't understand a thing until we've experienced it.
Do you think
go ahead.
Do you think the stigma had something to do with that? That if you dare talk about it, you'd be labeled as a nut. That might, the officers, I could really understand, and maybe the senior petty officers, that they would be worried about their careers. But, I was just a decade when I was a bosun's mate. We weren't exactly worried about our careers, but I can understand how those people might be concerned. But maybe the guys like me that were just average bosun's mates, stuff like that, maybe, we just didn't think anybody would believe us anyway, because, Navy scuttlebutt.
I think you've captured it. I mean, I know that for me, the career idea was part of it. Those are kooky ideas. They're not things you want to say in public or share with other people, especially back then. It was not in the way that it is now. It's kind of like if you think back 20 years ago, if you knew anyone that meditated, you probably lived near a Buddhist shrine or had a friend who was Buddhist or something like that. But nobody meditated. Nobody knew what it was. It was weird. And now everybody, sorry, we've got a lot of noise outside.
Well, it's not picking up that I can hear it anyway.
Oh, good. The whole neighborhood of kids just got home. So, but essentially sorry, I lost my train of thought a little bit with that. I don't want to ramble off.
Well, it's just fine. It was just basically how people were perceiving it. And, that's what we were talking about, and how, the idea that officers and stuff like that might be worried about it. But the average Joe like me is like, okay, well, nobody's going to believe me anyway. So let me ask this question. If that event happened today, I mean, that was 22 years ago, closing in on 22 years ago. How would it be different, do you think?
Well, I think one of the big differences is that the technology that we have now for exploiting a battle space and for understanding almost every inch of that battle space is incredibly sophisticated. In 2004, not so much. Granted, if we had access to all of the classified sensor data from 2004, you and I, as the public, would have a much clearer picture as to what the Tic Tac was. But these things that happen today in the information age, everybody's got a cell phone on the ship. We've seen leaks coming out like crazy. And I stand right in the middle of that. As an advocate, of course I want the truth. I want to see the video too. I want to know what it was. On the other hand, to know that the operational security on our ships are so poor that these leaks are coming out as if you could subscribe to them, it bothers me. So for me, it's the impasse between what we can get done as a society or as a voting bloc, and what the government, to use a big word, is able to keep from us and to do without our approval. That seems to be the even bigger issue. It's this phenomenon exists. That's for sure.
Right.
As to whether or not anyone knows the true origin, I'm not sure about that, but I do know.
We're going to delve into some of that. That's why I'm really looking forward, because I imagine you've talked about this event, to nauseum, but the second part is where I think that you'll really enjoy it even more, because this is one that's kind of been talked about. But I always think it's good to get a fresh look at things and kind of give us the background on where we're heading right now. you've been an experiencer for a while. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about some of your experiences? And one of the ones I'm really interested in is the one that we were talking about, the triangle event.
Mm. Yeah, I've up until Tic Tac, if you had asked me if I had seen a UFO, I would have answered yes. I think I had had a couple of interesting experiences. If you asked me what I thought about the paranormal, I would tell you I thought it was really great entertainment. I enjoyed watching stuff about it on the TV, but I probably would have called it woo woo.
Yeah.
But frankly, and I'll get to your to the triangle in a second. But it wasn't the real experiences for me that really changed my mind were the ones that came through meditation and through consciousness.
So when did you start doing that?
Well, that was after I retired.
Okay.
What
year was that?
2015. Yeah,
Okay.
in 2015, I retired from the Navy. I took about 6 months off. I went to culinary school. I decided that I didn't want to keep working in government after I'd missed an opportunity at a very, very easy, well-paying cronyistic job that was waiting for me. So full disclosure, I probably would have been up the road at Surface Forces Pacific running the anti-terrorism desk, but I screwed that up.
Wanted to be a cook or chef.
So I changed my mind and I decided I wanted to be a chef, and I went to culinary school and started cooking professionally. And then a few months into it, I really realized this was like going to boot camp again. And even though I thought I wanted to climb the ladder up to success like I had through the Navy, I thought that would be a fun adventure. I realized I didn't want to do it as a 40-year-old man getting yelled at by a 25-year-old kid. It wasn't going to work for me. I had plenty of ego. And so it was within 6 months of that, of not knowing what the heck I was going to do with my life. I had tinnitus like crazy. My own thoughts wouldn't stop. And so finally it was Sam Harris that one day, something that he said and wrote clued me into slowing down and paying attention to my breath. But then it was like I kind of fell out of my head immediately. Within a few weeks of following the directions, I was practically off on DMT trips, as some might say. And I realized later that this was astral projection, something I'd never heard of. So those things to me are the ones that are the most life-changing. But it was February of 2005, right after the Tic Tac. I was in my backyard sitting at a bistro table playing a video game, drinking whiskey, and I was still in my uniform. It was like 11 o'clock at night, somewhere around there. And I'd closed the computer and I was smoking a cigarette and I was looking due east. And it was a very clear night, and I started to notice that some of the stars seemed to be disappearing and seemed to be going away, and then they were coming back. And so I thought maybe there was a cloud that I couldn't see. And then I realized that as it was getting closer, the shape of sky that was darker was the shape of a triangle, very, very large, pointed triangle. And as it made its way overhead, it became clear that this was a physical craft of some kind, going what I would call very slowly. I think if I were to estimate, near stall speed of a commercial aircraft. But there was no noise. There was no engine noise whatsoever. And this thing was only a few thousand feet up. It was the size of about 2 football fields across. And I could barely see, the ambient light kind of glinting off of a matte look on the bottom of it. It went overhead, and I turned around to watch it, and I ran down the sidewalk in my yard towards the gate, jumped up on a table and braced myself against the umbrella, which I broke off when I did it, and watched this thing tip on its port side, its left side, and just zorch away to the southwest, and just completely contrary to an aerodynamic way that you would assume it would go to. The next morning,
that matches, and some people are going to be upset with this.
Yeah,
but that matches what Bob Lazar said too.
Well, I think if these things are doing what we think, they're transmedium isn't just air to water. So if these things aren't disturbing the water when they're entering via whatever warp bubble they have,
right, then
they're not disturbing the atmosphere either. They're going to be pushing, there's that's a less dense medium than the water. Yeah. So if they can, but that was where things went from just being what was that thing in the sky to what the heck is going on, because it was the next morning I got up, I went out, I thought the whole thing was a dream. I was like, I don't think that happened last night. I think I must have dreamed that. And I went out and the umbrella was broken. So for me, that was a shocker. I don't just casually break my stuff. Yeah, I wasn't intoxicated there. I went and checked the bottle. I was like, did I drink too much last night and not realize it? Nope. It was within a week of that I started having dreams. Dreams about a stateroom, which when I would wake up in it, it would be very lucid, and I would think I was in a hotel room. There was another person in there with me. But things about the hotel room were off. It wasn't a hotel room as I'm looking around it. The back of the door didn't have the warning about checkout time. It didn't have a peephole. There was no mirror over the dresser. And I would get up in this dream and turn to the left on the bed and put my feet on the ground and see that I was wearing a uniform. And I would get up to walk towards what I thought was the bathroom. And it was a glass door with a long metal handle. And as soon as I put my hand on the handle, the door would go transparent. And as I'm opening the door, I'm looking through it and I'm trying to figure out why I see what I see. Because in this dream, I think I'm going to the bathroom to gather my thoughts and figure out why I'm in a hotel room with a person that doesn't look like my wife. And as I'm opening the door and walking through, I step out into a hangar bay, a low ceilinged hangar bay with a yellow safety line about 4 feet in front of me. And there's cargo. There's some strange looking upright forklift stuff. Everything's olive drab in color and plasticized, is the best way I can put it. Someone walks by and salutes me. I've never rated a salute in my life. So I don't think I returned to the salute even in the dream. And that dream kept coming back the same way. There was a secondary dream that came up, and this only went on for about 2 or 3 weeks. But almost every night. The dream was I was in all the equipment I would wear for anti-piracy boarding in the Gulf. And around me were surrounded other people wearing a lot of the same gear. But it was in that same hangar bay with a strange look, and everything was painted a little bit differently. So, these are dreams, but they're dreams that started after this alleged UFO goes over my house. And my question is, you have some folks that'll have a similar experience and write a book about how they were in a space navy in an alternate life or something like that, and that's how they cope with it. Some people will write it like they believe it. Some people, and I'm not picking on anybody here. We've had enough folks come out talking about this type of thing. Right. I have no idea if I'm having dreams based on what I saw, if the dreams I'm having are connected to what I saw, completely unconnected. But they fall into that category of an aberration in one's consciousness that's unlike anything else in your life. And so you put a flag in it and you save it for later. And it's been moments like that, things that seem connected around this phenomenon that seem to transcend the normal dreaming and other things.
Okay. My question was, when is a dream not a dream?
It's not that I don't know, obviously, but I've been to the Monroe Institute. I practiced their techniques for years before I went. While I was there, we got to do a lot of cool stuff. I went with Chris Bledsoe and about 19 other experiencers, and we ran some experiments. We did affect the random number generators that they had around. Every time we had our group meditations, they would get aberrations on the random number generators. But when is a dream not a dream? Brother, that's one of the big questions of life, because I have dreamed future events that have come true. I'm not interested in proving that. I'm not going to go on the circuit trying to get people's money for saying it. I've remote viewed things I have no right to have derived that many details from. And I've had people ask me, well, if you can remote view, why aren't you rich? Well, I don't have, there's nothing out there I need that I can't earn myself. I don't want anything through some trick of the universe or
I've heard it doesn't necessarily work that way anyway.
Same here. Yeah. I've heard the more greedy you are, that energy will be returned to you somehow. And so now we're talking about karma, and I hate to say that I'm so flippant about it these days because I'm so immersed in it. I'm one of those people that thinks if I know it, everybody knows it, and that's the wrong way to think. But there's obviously something else, another place that our consciousness goes and can exist outside of the body. I had my first actually my only that I know of OBE in that I wouldn't call it a near death experience because I'd had a heart attack. They were putting in a stent, but I was stable. I wasn't in critical condition or anything. So I don't call it an NDE. But when they put my stent in, I popped out of my body fully conscious and floated up to the ceiling and watched a procedure that was during a portion of this procedure. It was strange enough that it was out of the ordinary, that when I woke back up and asked them about it, they knew I must have seen it. It was not, it was almost as if in the middle of, your heart surgery, the doctor did the hokey pokey really quick. And that's what you saw. And you're like, why'd you do the hokey pokey? He was yanking the catheter out of my arm by putting his foot up on the armrest and slowly leaning back like this. And that's what I was watching. So for me, I know that I exist separate from this body when needed. But there's something going on here, man. It's more than just nuts and bolts. It's more than just people in an advanced bus coming from another location here and getting off at a bus stop and looking around. I'm reticent to accept the authority of anyone who's willing to stand up and tell us what this is now, because I'm not even sure if you can know. I don't know that you could ever verify what this phenomenon is.
It's the unknown frontier.
At all. Yeah.
It really is. And anybody that acts like they know what it's all about, that's the person I say you don't listen to. I mean, anybody that's that arrogant. But when I think about dreams, the reason I ask when is a dream, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, is I've had dreams where my loved ones have come to me. Mm-hmm. And the first time it happened, I didn't recognize it. It was my dad. And I was so happy to see him. That when the dream was over, I was so sad, but at the time I thought it was a dream. Mm-hmm. And then several years after that, I had a dog I was really close to, and this is the one that started open my eyes. And I love that dog. It was a German Shepherd named Shadow, and we went through hell trying to save that dog and spent like $5,000. It had cancer, and it ended up dying, and I was devastated. And I was sitting there crying one night in a dream, which is weird enough. And all of a sudden Shadow showed up, and my dreams are normally, I don't know how yours are, Sean. Mine are normally all over the place.
Yeah.
They are just here one minute, here the next, whatever. But in that dream, it was like Shadow. I mean, clear picture. She comes up and she licks me on my face. And I swear that she was telling me that she was okay. Then another thing that happened is my sister died about 5 years ago. And I'm guessing 8 months, a year ago, she came to me in a dream. And I don't know how this works, but my brother-in-law communicated with me in the dream that she was coming to say goodbye, that she was getting ready to cross over. And so those were very profound experiences. I mean, I can't prove that they were my loved ones, but they were so different than any other dream I've had that I have to, in my heart, I have to believe that there is life after death. I don't know exactly what it looks like. I don't know exactly where everybody goes when they die. But if we have a spirit or a consciousness, I look at those words interchangeably. I mean, some people, consciousness, and I'm okay with that. But I think there's a part of us that lives on. There's a part of us that will never die. And we plug into this body. We plug into this brain. But when this brain ceases to exist, when this body ceases to exist, there's something that remains. And that's what I think when you talk about the astral body, when you leave the body, then there's something else that tells you right there that there is something else. Wouldn't you agree?
To me, that's all true. I can say this from my experience and being, I approach everything in my life. I'm on the spectrum. I've got what they used to call Asperger's. I didn't know that until I was a grown up. So I got to learn how to fully mask up as a regular human being before finding that out. But I, from my experience, I approach everything as an investigation. I approach everything as a solvable problem. And granted, some problems remain unsolved, but I think everything is eventually learnable. Um, we've all learned a lot about dimensionality in the last 20 years, stuff that was absolutely the realm of either kooks or physicists before. But because whether it's from movies or those of us who read about the phenomenon or are interested in consciousness, we now have an understanding that time may act like a dimension. And a fourth dimensional entity is going to have a different understanding of time and a different view of time. That they would move around within time as if it were a space that they could go back and forth in. I think that the place that we go each night when we sleep, when we're in those really strange, random dream spaces, you know, where you are building a go-kart with your landlord, you know, your ex-landlord somewhere, something that's just completely ridiculous. I think we're in the place we come from. I think it has different levels of density, as a lot of people say, and I'm going to use words that are familiar to other people, but in a different way. I'm coming at it as a completely secular investigator. It certainly does seem like that's where we're from. And I think that may be where we return to. And perhaps there's more organization than we're able to feel when we're dreaming. But if there's not, I can certainly understand why a place like this would have been created or coveted by people living there. If you lived in a mixed up, jumbled, you know, if tomorrow might be 2 weeks from now and yesterday it hasn't happened yet, how do you gain a foothold for an ego to have an experience? So I'm probably really messed up with it, but it's, for me, it's, I think that what we're doing here, because of the way physics works, because like you said, this brain seems like it's a transceiver.
Right.
You know, the electron or the photon is a particle, and then it's a wave. And so we all get that, you know, conflated with the idea that it requires a conscious observer to notice that particle. It doesn't necessarily. The moon has been noticing sunlight for millions of years, billions of years. But I think that we really need to take a look around. We're starting to figure out how this all works down to the Planck level, down to the quantum level. It's now time to turn back around to the mirror and realize that we're part of this. We are occurring at the quantum level, and we're probably entering this universe at the Planck level. You know, I have a feeling that that's, and I know these are feelings. This isn't science, which is I'm completely against. But I have a feeling we're being transmitted in through the smallest interstice in this existence, and we're decoding all of this with our brain. There has to be a reasoning behind it.
Well, I think it's interesting the way you talked about and described time in the fourth dimension, because I don't think, which is one of the things that always bothered me, I didn't believe in ghosts until I had a few events of my own. But one of the reasons I did not want to believe in ghosts was strictly because when you hear about the Civil War soldiers, people seeing them, and I go, who would want to exist for over 100 years in that state? But then when I was talking to Margie Kay, she explained that sometimes she would see people come out and they wouldn't even ghosts come out and they wouldn't even know what year it was. And so maybe it's like the fourth dimension, what you're talking about. Maybe wherever you say we go back to, and my theory, based on what I've heard and what I've learned, is that there are different stages of where we go to. You know, some people stay here because they're not ready to leave. And I assume that with my sister, when she died, she was probably worried about her husband and him being able to keep his business going, because he almost lost it the first time she almost died. And so I can see her sticking around. And I think when I was talking to Margie Kay, when she was on here, you know, Ginger Rogers and her mom, you know, one of them stayed for the other one and stuff. So I can see that some people stay, but then I've also had Simon Bone on, and he had his own view about exactly where we go after we die. And we agreed on the idea that some people stay here because they're not ready to leave yet. Either they've got unfinished business, but then there is this place that maybe you create, some people call it heaven. And so for the Christians, maybe the heaven would be here. For the Muslims, it would be a different thing here. And for others, maybe you just, evolve to a whole nother level. It's so unknown. And I'm not a guy who likes to speculate on the unknown, but what else can we do here? Right? What else can we do but speculate? And as long as we're clear and we communicate it that way, that this is speculation, we're not stating this as fact, because we don't know. Nobody knows. But we're never going to know if we don't speculate.
I think the Buddhists have a good handle on it. I think that we could all, I've always said that if we just need to get representatives of all the major religions in a room together and have them be honest with each other. Us in the West, we don't incorporate other teachings into our teachings. We usually, not so much. When most of these traditions were developed, they were developed, around trade routes in multicultural areas. There was all kinds of exchange going back and forth of ideas and such. But the Buddhists lay it out. What you just described as your reality is how they describe reality. That when we die, that our energy does, sometimes it's confused, sometimes it's in denial, but that our energy when we die is still very human. Let me put it that way. It doesn't become immediately non-egoic and angelic. It's sometimes very confused. You've got a cadre of people that say avoid the light, that the light is a ruse. That the tunnel and the everything that some people say we go through when we die. And we need to share all these stories with each other. We need to know what people in one part of the world say is their experience. I'm far less concerned what a scripture says now than what a person is saying and can describe about their own true experience. Because a lot of us have been misled by the ideas of others, is all I'm saying, and no longer put agency in our own experience. It's tough. We are talking about the strangest, most mysterious things in the world. Literally, what are you and what was that? Go ahead.
I was thinking about something. I want to say it while I'm thinking about it, because it was earlier. One of the commandments is to not take the Lord's name in vain. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about the different individuals, and you could look at even maybe certain scriptures and wonder this at the very least, but using God's name to propagate evil, isn't that the greatest manifestation of taking the Lord's name in vain?
Grammatically, you're absolutely correct, because taking a name is, if I took your name, I would be taking the last name Robinson. I would become Sean Robinson. Mm-hmm. It's not exclaiming, JC as an expletive.
Right.
It's wearing the coat of piety while committing evil.
Right.
That's what that discusses. Just like everyone thinks turning the other cheek is someone has wronged you, so you're going to show them how you're going to show them this other side of you, and it's gentle. You're not. You're insulting you're giving them the opportunity to continue insulting you, to make them look bad. There's more to it. It's like, right, these are half sayings that we've lost the meaning to. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't agree with you more.
I agree with you, Sean. I think that it's not about being a doormat. It just means don't seek out revenge, don't seek out anger, don't escalate the thing. But you and I both know that there are times in life where you better make a stand. I've had a couple bullies in my life, and trust me, it took blood and it took pain to get them to leave me alone. It took me fighting back and doing something. And once you hurt a bully, that's the thing about it, they will go find somebody else to bully, because they don't want somebody who's going to fight back.
This is a real experience we're all having. It is a life and death experience. Everyone's life is a life and death experience. And some of us are going to, of the 8 billion of us, are going to encounter things that are kill or be killed. Mm-hmm. And I don't ever want to be in that position. I don't wish that on anyone else, but that's a fact that the individual has to make.
Right.
Excuse me, that's a choice that you have to make as an individual. I'm sorry, I don't know where all my words went there.
Well, like I said, I'm a person that values life. We had that discussion. I mean, when I see a spider, I'll put it in a jar now and take it outside. Now I've got ants swarming my wife's bathroom. There's like nothing I can do, and we're going to have to put something in to kill them. But I really, really value life. But if somebody comes into my home with ill intention, I will defend my family. If it means taking that other person's life to be able to do it, I will do it.
Yeah.
Do I want to do it? Is it something that if I could get out of it any other way, I would do it. But like you said, there are circumstances in life that are out of our control. And I just can't imagine how it would be more ethical to let my family be killed.
Right.
To not and let the perpetrator go by. I can't understand how that would ever be more ethical and more honorable, because I believe you're a husband, you're a family man. You know what I mean? You have a priority to take care of your family, but we don't go out looking for it, I guess, is the difference.
Yeah. Well, I think a more refined way to look at it is the trolley problem. And I'll state it for me. There's a train track going down and it splits into two, and on one side, let's say there's my wife tied to the tracks, and I love her very much and I like her. This isn't to take my wife joke. So my wife's tied to the right tracks, and on the left are 6 strangers, and I have to choose whether the train goes left or right. It has no brakes. Am I going to run over one person or 6? One that means the world to me, or 6 I've never met? And the reason it's called the trolley problem is because it doesn't have an easy solution.
No.
It's not called the trolley solution. It's not everybody saves their wife. No, it's not like that. That's a big deal, choosing 6 lives over one. And because in a real society, you get hauled right out of that trolley and 6 families are going to come stone you to death.
Yeah. Well, because
we live in a strange world.
Well, but also the one you have an emotional connection with and the deepest of levels, hopefully, and the 6 maybe you don't. So the value of the one, unfortunately, to you or to whoever, might be more valuable than the 6, because you have to live with the consequences. But if you're selfish, that's the way you're going to look. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know what I'd choose.
Well, Spock was a hero because he gave up his life for many.
Right.
And then Star Trek went and threw the whole thing in the garbage by turning around and putting everything at risk putting thousands and thousands of people and equipment at risk to go save their friend. And it always killed me that Spock understood and all of the humans around him did not.
Yeah.
It's the beauty of it. It is the beauty of being human, that we are both willing to move heaven and earth to save one person, but also willing to give up our lives to save whomever we need to.
That's what I was going to say. There has to be something more to it, because in war, if you've got one guy trapped out there, you might send 10 guys out to try to save him, and 3 of them will get killed. Yeah. But at the end of the day, there's something inside of you that's saying it was worth it.
The principle matters more. Yeah, I agree. In certain instances, the principle matters more.
Right. Let me ask a question. So how has this changed your view of reality?
It's softened me. I went through a great period of a lot of anger, reactivity, especially when I'm a Gen Xer. I grew up listening to punk. I loved Nirvana. I get the music. I'm an anti-establishment kind of guy. And when you find out that the man has secrets that you don't get to know, it ticked me off more than it might a regular person. And being personally involved with the phenomena, having, interacted with it and been mystified by it for so long, I really want to know. But I got over it. Maybe it's because I'm in my 50s now. Maybe it's because I think in many ways I've been there, done that, and seen almost everything. I'm in a point in my life where I'm choosing who I am, and I choose to be non-reactive. I choose to be not triggered by whatever the thing is. And so I've chosen to live my life now, and I choose to live the remainder of it, unless I change again, as much one day at a time and as much by the moment as I can. I try to be here right now to talk about what we're talking about instead of thinking about what I have to do later in the day. I I dare say I've given up on finding answers, but I feel like in doing so that I found more than I expected to.
Well, my wife has solved the trolley dilemma. She says, "I'll make it easy for you, Dale. Choose the 6 over me." So
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm probably not gonna save those 6 people. And that's the problem, is that I have to, what does that mean for me? You
I
know?
know. It just
But
you just can't imagine life, without. I mean, I know you're a family man. I'm sure that's how you feel. You can't imagine life without your wife. And how do you live afterwards? So that's why that's an impossible situation. Because even if you do what would be considered the right thing,
Yeah.
you have to live with the consequences afterwards.
Yeah.
You have to absolutely have to live with them. And it's like, so I want to ask some questions.
Mhm.
And I know these are impossible questions, but maybe we can get partial answers. So are we talking about aliens? Are we talking about beings from other dimensions? Are we talking about consciousness? Are these physical objects? Are we talking about holograms or something else? Or is it all of the above?
I think the easy answer is to say that it's all of the above. I don't get the feeling that we're dealing whatsoever with interstellar spacecraft. And I think that it goes a long way to say, look at how we all responded to 3i Atlas, vice how we all respond within the UFO community, vice how we all respond to, say, silver orbs or black triangles. Now, either you absolutely don't understand physics and space travel and delta V and things like that, and you're just having fun with a subject, but the two have nothing to do with each other. One was something that takes millions of years to travel, exhibits 0 of the 5 observables whatsoever, and everybody jumped to the idea that it's an interstellar spacecraft. It's far more likely to be an interstellar spacecraft than any of these things that we see and call UFOs, these saucers, these orbs, these triangles, these tic-tacs, etc. Those distances are so vast. So does that mean they're just warping space from another location in this physical universe and coming here? I don't think so. The distances, the energy output, all of those things are so vast that the level of expenditure just to come here and screw around with us the way they seem to be doesn't seem very advantageous. I'll cut right to the chase. The entire phenomenon masks itself from the experiencer.
Tricksters, is that the word?
That's what Jacques Vallée calls them. To me, it's clandestine. It speaks of someone that does not want you to know their true identity. We have all of these off ramps to this discussion that people take. They'll say, well, the reason of this is because they only communicate telepathically. We have no evidence that they only communicate telepathically, and they also show great evidence of having advanced technology. Well, I think that if you're able to move a spaceship through a tear in space for those vast distances, you can probably figure out email, radio, Wi-Fi, etc. They don't make any overtures to humanity. They're not broadcasting anything. They're not sending emails out to experiencers saying, hey, meet us at these coordinates and we'll tell you everything that's going on because you can handle it. Those things aren't occurring. A clandestine force is moving in and out of our airspace, masking their intent, masking their identity, masking their origin, etc. If they're only dealing with our military and intelligence complex, then I can tell you right off the bat, they're not the ethical good guys we think they are. The way they're operating shows me that they're not ethical. Other people would throw out excuses. Well, they're alien. They don't understand. Hold on a second. They came all the way here. If they don't understand us, if they don't know what they're looking at enough to safeguard us, then you can go home. Again, I don't see friends. I don't see anybody that's all of the talk about saving us from nuclear war or the environment. They never stopped a single nuclear test. We've tested thousands of nuclear weapons all over this planet at an insane amount of harm to the biosphere. All I'm saying is that we've got a lot of cover stories right now. We've got the core story that comes out of the governmental group, that kind of starts around 47 and maybe touches on Eisenhower, and it gets a little shadowy, but if we don't talk about that, we can tell you the truth kind of thing. And I'm over that. I want hang them high. Everybody that needs to go to jail can go to jail. I don't care. Bring the truth out, just like these other things we're seeing in the mainstream daily news. I don't care what your intentions or what side you were on. If you committed evil or acts of treason against humanity, you got to go. And the rest of us will deal with what the truth is afterwards. But I don't see friends here. I see something that's clandestine, that's around manipulation, it's around control, and it's around power. And the government and the military industrial complex have chosen to take the same route with this information. They've utilized it in the same way. It's apparent that they've taken what technology they were able to observationally reverse engineer and move that into black programs, build weapon systems, build control systems, etc. There are answers somewhere, but we're not getting them. And it seems like it's because to give up those answers would be to, first of all, expose a number of crimes that have been committed in the name of national security, perhaps, against the American people, not to mention the entire world. But to keep this secret any longer, to think that there might be people in power who know what you are, know where you're from, know where you're going, and know why you're here, more so than you do, it's one of the most repugnant things to keep from other humans.
Okay. Now, the question that comes up is, you said you believe some of these crafts are physical, correct? And so where are they coming from? This isn't consciousness. This is material, right?
Yeah. As far as I would go to say that, it would be, I don't know, because I don't think they're coming from another rotating body around a star light years away. The idea that you could even set a course through another dimension to reach a point in the third dimension, I can't even begin to write a science fiction story around how you're gonna do that. You can barely, it's hard enough to get from point A to point B in this regular Newtonian universe because of all of the different things involved. So where are they coming from? Somewhere else, obviously.
If it's a physical object, what I'm saying, it's
Yeah.
got to be a physical existence, at least to some degree, because you wouldn't need a physical object without a physical being, right?
But I'll tell you, I have two schools of thought as to what I believe is really going on. And this is, I've never really come out and said this, but I think the problem's local. I don't think it's from another planet or another dimension.
Under the oceans, maybe?
Well, under the oceans, under the crust of the earth, etc. I think there have been numerous civilizations before this one. We live on a cyclical planet where every 13,000 years or so, it seems like the tub gets sloshed and everything gets wiped clean.
I was going to go on that one. That's where I was going to go on. And it kind of, it might explain, because, everybody knows I'm a pastor, and the very arguments against them being good are the exact same arguments that people use against God. That if God is good, if God exists, then why doesn't he stop? It's the exact same argument. And I will propose an alternate theory. Yours could be very, very true, and I understand a lot of people have been hurt by them. But what if, and you just brought it up, there's some
can I ask you before we do this, the God in the Old Testament and the God in the New Testament are obviously not the same God.
They don't seem like the same God to me.
Well, even Jesus said they weren't. But yet we just say God.
Yeah.
So if we've got more than one God, maybe we have more than three. Maybe we have more than five.
Right.
And you and I talked about this in our other talk, where I can't go into a long conversation about an Abrahamic God if I know that there's a point in the history where a Canaanite storm god named Yahweh and another local god named Adonai, etc., were merged into the same thing. I don't think that if the creator of the universe, of all humans, of all color and manner of thing, if I don't think that thing deals with us at all. I think that is so far beyond our understanding that the idea that thing is going to come down and create a fable around I don't want to say fable, going to create a narrative around something it doesn't make any sense to me. And yet we have all of these things that exhibit UAP technology throughout our history that claim to be gods. I don't think the creator of the universe needs any foreskins. I don't think he needs to steal wives to break his own commandments to get what he wants, which is what the Old Testament God did. And in the New Testament, the only person that showed up was Jesus in that name. So it's just, for me, the first thing I do in this realm is I remove the Abrahamic religions, because they're only a small part of the equation. I'm
not really doing a religious argument here. That's not what my show's about.
Sure.
My point was simply that's the argument that people use against the UAPs. And my argument is, or my discussion is, that there are other possibilities. Like, for one, they could be not, the old Star Trek thing is not to interfere with lesser species. And so that is a very strong possibility that, and then you brought up the cycle. And I heard this first from a guy that doesn't believe in aliens at all. He doesn't believe in any of this, but he thinks that every so many thousands of years, whatever that number might be, 50, 100,000 years, that everything that we destroy ourselves. And then you talked about the secular, then it starts, we go back basically to a ground level, and then we start building it up again. And the question that comes up, and like I said, this is all theoretical. I want to make sure we understand that, whichever side we're on this, whichever way we're looking, whatever angle we're looking at this, it's all theoretical, because nobody knows for sure. But all I would say is, I know that there's some going to want to go, okay, they've got a different view, and I want to make sure that their side's representative too, that maybe the reason they haven't interfered is because we are supposed to do it for ourselves.
Can I ask you a question? When you say maybe they haven't interfered,
well, not with the big things you're talking about, the things like with the nuclear weapons and the testing, and that's specific what I'm saying.
I think that I'll tell you a subject that no one that I've interfaced with in government experience was willing to discuss with me in any way, shape, or form, and that was the abductions.
Okay.
And the reason most of the people in government service that are at a level that would have any information don't want to discuss it is because there are programs with technology derived from this subject that center around mind control, microwave weapons, and other things like that. But the fact is you've got way more people who have had negative experience than you do people who have had positive experiences. My own experiences felt abusive. They felt traumatic. We call these abductions. We don't call them play dates.
Right.
So all I have to say is I can't think of anything. I can't think of positive experiences dealing with abductions and with alleged encounters and etc., where the person presents a positive influence without having an entire narrative of their Pleiadians and their star. There's always a whole story that comes with it. But the thing is if you're not wallowing in confirmation bias, that's not the same story the other people are telling.
Well, yeah, you got to definitely realize that there are two sides of this. There are some.
I'm not talking two. I'm talking thousands of different sides.
Why not? When I say two sides, I don't mean two people. I mean, I have whole groups of people that talk to me about the positive side of it, that they don't see themselves as being abducted. They see themselves as volunteering and being taken. And I understand from a person that's been abducted, somebody, Fringe is a friend of mine and who's gone through all kinds of hell. That's the only filter they can read it through. And when they hear somebody else say it the other way, it's a difficulty for them, because they have a trouble seeing that other people can have a different experience.
Do you know anybody who's having a positive experience? And this, I'm not trying to start anything. I'm quite curious.
Like breaking the silence channel. I mean, there's tons of people that come on that.
Someone who's having a positive experience who claims to have communication with them, where they're able to exchange information with them.
There are some that say that, yes.
Okay.
There are some who say that.
What did they say the negative experiences are?
The negative experience for them was the trauma of the event of not being ready for it.
I mean, what do they say is happening to all of the people who feel they're being experimented?
They may argue that
abuse.
they may argue that it's a different species, that maybe it's a reptilian, or maybe it's
I find that, again, I agree with you. I find that very convenient that anyone that disagrees must be somebody else. And so we're back to the point of just how many, first of all, how many species are coming here?
Right.
Anytime somebody does something we don't like, well, those are a different kind of gray, or maybe that's a reptilian. These people over here say the reptilians are friendly. These people say they're not. All I'm saying is that if you have engaged in remote viewing,
right,
or mediumship or things like that, then either you admit that analytical overlay almost ruins the entire experience unless done in a controlled environment. And analytical overlay is the difference between if I give you a coordinate, which I know is to the Giza complex, and you tell me that you saw the pyramids, I'm discounting all of your data because your analytical overlay overcame your ability to describe the objects instead.
Mm-hmm.
Your own subconscious had to put your beliefs ahead of the data. And my only thing is, as a investigator, I think anecdotal experience is absolutely valuable. I've helped develop a app where that's exactly what we're there to do. We're there to share our anecdotal experiences. But if you're a human being that's not even aware that you have analytical overlay or a subconscious, that you believe that what you experience that comes through your lens is the truth, I can't use that information.
All right.
And that's what the majority of these, when you look at the underlying psychology, and this is going to tick a lot of people off, but the underlying psychology of most reports of experiencers have not involved the scientific method, don't acknowledge the overlay, and are scientifically unusable almost.
Yeah. I have a question for you, because this is, I think, what they're kind of wrestling when it comes to aliens. The issue that I see is that you are very suspicious of them, right? Is that what you're telling me?
No, I am very suspicious of anyone who is determining a conclusion based on evidence that can't be shared or presented with others.
Okay. Well, I think they would argue the other way, but let's go to another point, because I think that there's good and bad everywhere. Remote viewing, astral projection.
Mm-hmm.
When you go into astral projection, do you believe it's possible to have contact with beings that are not good?
I've heard plenty of stories of everything. I can provide no proof that other beings exist in that realm, and that any of it is not just my subconscious. Now, you're asking, have I ever met the boogeyman on the other side?
Right.
Sure have. Scared the hell out of me. There's nothing on the other side that can harm you. There's not a single thing, anything in your head can do to harm you. Doesn't matter how scared you are. If that dragon looks like it's about to bite your head off, I dare you to give it a big kiss on the lips, because it's gonna go away. So that tells me a lot.
Dreamscape to me than it would be. There are times, though, obviously, where people see things that they could not know, but doesn't that sound a little bit like a dream state where
it's
is
not
it because
though,
you're the only person in the room? Is that the reason why you're saying that?
No, it's because I'm wearing an ECG. I'm measuring my brain state. I know where my brain waves are. I'm not in delta. I'm not dreaming. I don't have rapid eye movement occurring. I'm sitting upright on a mat for approximately 40 minutes at a time to an hour. I know where I am. I know what occurs. I know what occurs in the visual field. I know what occurs interoceptionally through the body. So I know that I'm not sleeping, because no one else. I mean, if you look at the sleep is a state. So
I'm not saying dreams. I'm just I'm playing a devil's advocate on that.
Well, I'm just saying I'm very familiar with the local dreaming level. I'm very familiar with what it takes to rise above that towards what we call the astral. I'm not saying these things actually exist, but they're something that you can gain familiarity with through practice. So if you go out lucid dreaming, you're going to go out in your neighborhood. You might see some of your neighbors around. You might even get a couple of them to know. When we were at Monroe Institute, we practiced as a group. astral projecting down to the fire pit. And then afterward, we do an after action report of the people who were able to notice each other, give each other signs, signals. You know, what did I do when you saw me? Well, you did a little dance and you turned around and went like this. That's exactly what I did. You know, those things occurred for us. And that's anecdotal. We can't prove that. But if you willed yourself to go up farther, there's a lot of what seems like other consciousnesses beyond. Seems like there's other consciousnesses here. All of it feels like a dream because it's all energetic. But I'm just saying that from my own experience, these things are achievable, they're learnable, they're knowable. But in the end, there's not a single thing on the other side either that tells you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that honestly, what frustrates me the most is I and you have zero evidence that any consciousness exists but your own. There's not a single math problem. Right. There's not a single equation that represents consciousness. There's not a single.
It's not scientifically testable. I mean, it isn't something.
That's what proof means. Yes.
Well, that's what proof means based on what we understand science today. But there is stuff clearly out there that you cannot put in a test tube. You cannot put a ghost in a test tube. But yet there is clearly evidence that they have been there. There's been evidence in my church where wind came in out of nowhere. And so even though it was something caused that and there was no prosaic answer for it. So there are things outside of what can be tested by science. We have to admit that going forward.
All I'm saying is though, is what you're talking about ghosts, but the only thing that you can prove occurred was wind. You don't have a sensor stack that was recording electromagnetic data. Don't have What I'm saying is that is analytical overlay. I can't figure out how the wind came through here. I am going to attribute it to a ghost.
There's no possible way the wind could have come through, though, Sean. It's what you don't understand. The doors are shut, the windows are shut.
Dale, I'm not trying to prove your experience wrong. All I'm asking you is, as an investigator, how does one go from that to ghost?
Because of the fact I was doing a memorial service for a lady, and she came down the center aisle, and there were the picture, there was the urn, and then there were the flowers. And out of those three, she hit her picture and knocked her picture over, and only her picture over. So it doesn't matter to me what anybody else.
No, I just think you're missing my point as an investigator.
No. You're saying there's no evidence other than there's wind, that there's no empirical evidence to support it was a ghost.
You're misunderstanding me. If I take into evidence your wedding ring, I'm assuming it's a plain gold band.
Yeah.
Is it a gold? Okay. What I'm going to write on the report for the evidence is gold in color, metallic band. And the reason I'm going to write that is because without testing the element, I don't know if that's gold. Doesn't matter how many times I see it, how many times I've talked to you. In evidence means non-confabulatory data. So that's all I'm saying when I say evidence.
When you combine it, though, Sean, honestly, when you combine it with thousands upon thousands of other stories, it's not a one-off. It isn't a one incident, because then you have to go and you have to say, okay, why are all of these different people having these same or similar experiences?
That's a good question, but what you're still missing me, man.
Well, I know what you're saying. I know you're taking it strictly from a scientific.
What do you think my ring's made out of?
Right.
What do you think it's made out of?
Probably gold, as I'm guessing.
No, it's not gold. It's silver in color.
Okay, I can't even see it that clearly. I don't know what it's made of because I haven't tested unless you tell me what it's made of.
It's silver in color, but it's platinum.
Right. So it's not what it appears, is what you're trying to say.
I'm saying what it appears to be would be up to the person who's looking at it who doesn't know. They are going to apply their own analytical overlay.
Let's take this argument one step further. Yeah. Then what do you do with the stuff that cannot be scientifically tested?
You keep writing it down. You keep sharing it. You keep doing exactly what we're doing here, but you keep putting the eye of scrutiny to it.
Right.
I can't say to myself, okay, I've got people who want me to say that I was part of a secret space navy. And to them, that secret space navy is full of Nazis and all this other stuff. And it's a crazy story involving asteroids and Mars and time travel. I have zero evidence of that whatsoever. But
So
they have seen.
Why
They have
tell the story then? Why tell the story, Sean? What was the purpose of the story if it isn't based in some part of reality?
So, man, that's a weird. It's weird. That's a weird thing to say to me. Why tell the
I'm trying to
story?
understand what the purpose of the story was if there isn't any.
Because anomalous experience are anomalous experience. When
You
we
record them
we
to
share
record them.
we share them, we record them. The moment we start applying our beliefs and our analytical overlay to things are the moments we've stopped investigating and we've begun believing. And I'm an investigator. I'm not interested in belief. I will share stories with you all day that I can't prove. When you say, what do you think happened? I'll tell you what I think happened. I'll tell you what it feels like to me. I'll tell you what the evidence shows me. But the thing that came to my window that I wrote a song about, that I feel like I jumped out the window trying to grab it by the neck, that looked like a really scary brown, sick gray and a spaceship behind it. I don't say that happened. I say that happened to me in consciousness because no one else can say that it happened. I don't say where they're from. I don't say. I just say what I saw. That's what I'm saying.
What if they tell you though? What if they tell you where they're from? Are you supposed to still leave that open ended?
Why do you believe anything they tell you?
Well, I don't know. Why do I believe what you tell me? Because I trust you.
Again, these are deflections. So I'm just asking you a question.
No. Why do I believe
someone comes in a spaceship and they say, I'm from the Pleiades, and you go, I believe them.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm just taking them at their face value. You can obviously decide whether it's true later or not, but at face value, wouldn't you just until they give you a reason not to believe them? Wouldn't you just, and if they haven't deceived you before, if you have no reason to disbelieve them, it's like you would tell me something, on the surface.
Belief's not important to me. Belief is not important. I don't need to believe anything. What did they tell you? They said they're from the Pleiades. Any way we can check on that? Nope. Cool. That's that. That there's.
You would record that though, right? You would still record that. That would be part of.
I would record everything. That's what. This is what I'm trying to say. Belief doesn't have any place in this anymore. Belief is anecdotal experience, and I can tell you, as someone who has no dog in the fight, there are no two groups talking to each other, so there must be thousands of different interdimensional alien. Everybody gets to have their own truth, means no one gets the truth. It cannot be possible that everyone's telling the truth. And all I'm saying is that at this process, belief has no meaning to me. Investigation, evidence, repeatability. Those are the only things that are going to get us to the actual truth. We cannot believe the anecdotal experience of each other at face value when it comes to changing lives.
But Sean, let me ask you,
yeah,
you're going pretty strong on this. What if the tools you're using to find evidence, what if in 500 years from now that discovered that this is all wrong? And that what you're describing is very limiting, and it kind of puts everything in a box because you're saying it can only be this way. How do we get beyond that box? And let me ask you the question that way.
So first, I got. Can you? I can't really deal with that. You want me to go 500 years in the future to prove your point?
No, I'm not asking.
Look, let's go 500 years back. You can pick anything we got wrong in the past. You can pick anything we got wrong in the past.
Yeah, and there has been.
Did we get it? Yeah, there's been lots of things.
Right.
Lots and lots and lots of things.
That's why I'm asking is because there's so many things that we thought were fact,
right,
that now are not fact. So
which of those were proved true not using science?
Science of it at the time. That's the point I'm arguing is science at the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, so yeah, I know, man, but you can't go forward and say, well, someday we'll have science that'll prove you're wrong. And I say, well, let's go back.
Not prove wrong, but maybe expand or bring more light to what we think we know.
And will that be done through belief or science?
It'll be well, not through belief, obviously, but belief is just a way of trying to understand something. That's what you don't. That's why I don't. The way you're using belief.
No. Belief is when we have come to a conclusion in the absence of evidence.
Well, I don't agree with that. I don't
Oh,
agree with that at all. To me, belief is the idea, the way you try to understand and make sense of things. Because sometimes there's things that you don't have everything to definitively say it's this or that. And ghost is a great example of that.
Well,
But
hold on. Let's back up. Belief. We don't have to believe in what belief means. It's an acceptance
no,
that a
that's not what I
statement
said.
is true
Not
or
what I
that
said.
something.
No,
Okay.
no,
Well,
no. I'm saying that there are things
I'm not
that
trying
we
to win an
don't-
argument. Let's just define
No,
belief.
you are.
Trust.
You are.
I'm going to read the definition of belief. An acceptance that a statement is true, that something exists. Trust, faith, or confidence in someone or something.
Right.
So I am going to say that from this point on the conversation, science and belief are not the same thing. You're giving me straw man arguments here, and I'm not even sure what the point you're trying to make is. All I am saying is that evidence is provable and repeatable. Science is provable and repeatable. I think the anecdotal experience is very important. It is neither provable, repeatable, nor science.
Right.
That's all I'm trying to say.
And so why are we keeping anecdotal evidence? What is the end game for that? What is the benefit of even having the anecdotal stories, the ones on the Nanu app and stuff like that? What is the benefit of doing something like that if it's not going anywhere and it's all belief?
You're saying a lot. I'll tell you the benefit. The benefit is this. You have a event that occurs, whether it is a crime or other event. You have 100 different witnesses to that event. Those 100 witnesses are going to give the 10 investigators who investigate it very different stories. Some of them are going to describe the appearance of the person differently, their hair, their clothing, their size, their tone of voice, etc. All of them are objectively wrong because those things are provable. Okay? So you remove that from the anecdotal experience. Now, you take all of their experiences and you take all of the things that match. He had a gun. Okay, he had a gun.
But that's not evidence, though, is it,
Hold on a
Sean?
second. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh man, this is tough. This is tough. Yes, that is evidence.
How is it evidence if it's based on anecdotal testimony?
It's really tough. I can't have you go back and forth. You
No,
can't
no, no.
switch
That's a
sides in your
legitimate
own
question.
argument.
That's a legitimate
How is
question.
it okay? This is tough because now I gotta.
Because you can't scientifically test it, is what I'm trying to say.
What does that mean? That you can take a narrative report, you can read a narrative report and say this person said he had a long gun. You can go to the next narrative report and go, this person said he had a long gun. You go through all of them and no one at any time says he has a short gun.
Yeah, but how do you scientifically prove that other than based on anecdotal evidence? That's the argument. That's what scientists will use, is that if you can't put it in a test tube and you can't do it.
We're back because you said what? You said, how is that evidence? Evidence is the available body of facts or information indicating whether a belief or proposition is true or valid.
Right.
The available body of facts or information. Facts. It can be a fact that it can be a fact that 10 people said something.
Right. And
that is a fact.
Couldn't that apply to ghosts too, though? 10 people said something about ghosts and they all describe ghosts the same way and they all describe exactly this happening. Would that not be similar?
Yes, you're catching on.
Okay.
You're catching on. Yes.
Well, that's what I was saying.
Those are evidence, vice being something provable. We can't keep throwing these words around and pretending they mean the same thing. Okay. You have evidence that I own a silver comb because you have just seen the silver comb over this Zoom. Okay. Silver in color. You don't know what it's made of. The evidence is with your own eyes. You have evidence. Whether that evidence has value in a court of law, whether that evidence has value to a podcast, host, that's different. Evidence has a definition. Science has a definition. Anecdotal, all these things have definitions and they all have meaning within that. What I'm saying is that these definitions and these meanings must be respected by the community. Okay.
Right, let's close this part down. This part, obviously, we're not making any progress on, and obviously, it's upsetting you. And me
I'm not upset. I'm confused because we're arguing.
Let's get to the heart of it. Let's get to the heart of it. This was the last question I really wanted to ask, and that is, what is it all about? I mean, if the universe isn't what we've been taught our whole lives, if the educational system has lied to us, if the church has lied to us, if the government has lied to us, what is it all about? And why do we even matter? I mean, what is this when you look at all of the phenomenon and what's the fact that we're not alone, which the evidence seems to support? What is it all about?
Now.
It's about now. So you live for today. Okay.
Now, not today.
What does that mean? Live in the moment.
What is now to you? How long is your now?
My now is gone already.
What is
it's
it
here now, and it's gone in a second.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it depends on. Explain to me what you mean by now, because you're the one using the word.
Any moment that you're thinking about the past, you're fantasizing about something that's gone. Anytime you're thinking about the future, you're fantasizing about something that's gone.
Right.
When you sit down in the room with your loved ones and you pull out your phone and you get lost in the algorithm, you're not in now. And I'm saying now is something you have to notice for yourself. Now softens you. Now makes the emergency not so important.
So you're saying by not looking in the past and trying to interpret everything based on the past, you just look at things as they come right now. Is that what you're saying?
Now is the moment when you are present with no agenda.
Right.
When you start finding those moments and you start finding yourself, you realize how much of a script you're running, how much you're doing things the way other people told you how to do it, or the way that the people that live next door to you or in your town look. And all I'm saying is that, what do I think this is all about? I think this is all about each of us as individuals figuring it out. Figuring out, hey, when do I turn the trolley? When do I walk away? When do I run towards? And why? You're really here to figure all that out about you. What kind of person are you? Are you a person that's willing to take from another person to get what you need? Are you a person that wants to give to others? And it seems like the universe, the box that we're in, this undefinable shape of expanding time space, doesn't care whether you do good or bad. It's just watching. I don't like that.
Well,
there's
that's the hard part. I think that as we look at society, there are certain things that I think we all can look at and say, okay, these are universal truths. Murdering somebody is wrong, lying to somebody. I think most of us, but I don't know how you define that beyond the big things. And I don't understand. And if you add in other species from other places, what does I'll use the word morality because I can't think of a better word right now. Is that going to change how we view things? I mean, I don't think it'll change things like murder and rape and lying and stuff like that. But, Bassett's pretty good. I'm not looking at him as being good or bad. He points that out quite a bit. But I always wonder, like, when contact gets here, I don't know that we're going to be ready for it, in the sense that you go to Walmart and same contact is made and we interact. I mean, what's it going to be like? You go to Walmart or you go to Starbucks and, like, in front of you is a being from another dimension, another planet. And then you have all the big questions, what if what they eat is detestable to us? What if they don't eat at all? What if their bodies, they draw energy from something other than food? I kind of hope that's the way it is, because I'd love to see a world where something doesn't have to die for something else to live. But Sean, how are we going to be? I mean, do you think psychologically we're going to be ready for that day? Or do you think that it's going to be kind of a process where we grow into it?
I don't think we're anywhere close to being ready for it. I don't think that we would be able to accept the level of diversity that another species would present when we can't even look at each other as all being human.
I would agree with that.
I think it's all incredibly fascinating, but I do think that this place was created. I'm not a religious man, but I think this entire place was created. I have a feeling that whatever we are when we're not here is what created it. I think we're all of our problems and all of our solutions at the same time. And I don't think that these things we're dealing with that we call aliens are any different than us. I think it's just different consciousness in different vehicles that are enjoying this 3D space the way that they've chosen to, or the way that they understand it. But I don't think that matters if we're ready or not. I don't think the people during the Bronze Age were ready for the collapse. I don't think that the Native Americans were ready for smallpox. But one thing that we can be absolutely sure of is that change will come.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever we are after is what we will call human. I'm not having a lot of fun in this game of life anymore. I see too much. I see how our fellow man is. I see that.
That's where I was going to go, right, with what you're saying.
Yeah.
How can people be, and I think you're a caring person too, Sean, but what I can't understand is how cruel we can be to each other. And that just boggles my mind. How, what's the cause of that? What's behind that? And if there are other species of aliens, based on what you said, it sounds like they're probably just like us, if we all come from the same thing, unless they've evolved out of it.
I see no evidence for a greater moral set in visitors than in us. I want to kind of bastardize a quote from George Carlin. You know, he talks about how he basically lays out a bunch of complaints, and he says, half of us this, half of us that, half of us this, half of us that. And at the end, he makes sure to say, if any of you, some of you guys are in the audience going, ha, yeah, they're like that, aren't they? And he says, if you think I'm not talking about all of us, you're in the joke. You're part of the joke. And that's where we're at. It doesn't, I'm not going to say one side of anything is better than the other. Okay. And I know that you've got people that will immediately say, well, he's not cool enough because he's not willing to point at the bad guy. I'm saying the bad guy is us. And if have you ever been cruel in your life to another human being? I have. I'm not perfect.
Yeah, I don't know that I've heard other people, but I don't know if I'd use the word cruel. That's not.
Perhaps. Do you think would another person ever say that you had been cruel to them? Perhaps.
I don't think so.
Okay. You've led a pretty good life. I have been.
No, I made lots of mistakes. I made lots of mistakes. I've hurt people, but I don't think they would ever label me as a cruel person.
Well, have you ever been purposefully hurtful?
I don't know if I'm
sure
at some point. Yeah, I'm sure.
I know I've hurt people on purpose.
Yeah, but not.
And I remember who I was and what I was thinking.
Not to see them hurt though. That's never been it. It's been the byproduct of some decisions I've made, and I made those decisions just like other people have, knowing that they were wrong and understanding they would hurt, but there wasn't a cruel intent that I wanted to hurt them. And I guess that's when I use cruel. That's what I'm talking about. I understand it in that vein of light, that it is intentionally wanting to hurt another person.
So you only hurt people by accident in your life?
I don't hurt them intentionally to be cruel. I don't do it and then take joy in the fact that they suffer.
So you've only done it by accident. I'm still trying to get to the first point, but you've been going on trying to make sure that I know that you've never hurt anybody on purpose.
No, see, you're just misunderstanding what I'm saying, Sean. You're completely taking and twisting my words. That's not fair at all, Sean. You are completely.
Dale, I'll just go back and ask you the same yes or no question I asked you the first time. Have you ever been cruel?
I guess I have been, but never intentionally.
So
I've never intentionally set out.
I can say yes. I'm not afraid to say yes or no. So let me just pretend that I never asked you. I've been cruel. I've been hurtful to people before. Okay. I have the self-consciousness and the self-awareness to say, Sean, why did you do that? How did it feel to do that when you did it? Most people can't do that. They can't even admit that they commit sins and wrongdoing in their life without a long list of excuses to get around it.
I just said
I'm not even talking about you, Dale. Okay. You got to stop taking what I'm saying personally. I'm trying to talk about ideas in psychology and in self-awareness. But what the problem I'm trying to get to is that you can't even have this conversation with most people without them taking it personally. Okay? Most people are not willing to be self-reflective, look upon their sins, and move past them. You ask me what we're going to do and if we're ready. We're certainly not ready for these entities and these ideas until we're able to turn a mirror upon ourselves and our own sins and admit them without excuses. And I say that for all of humanity. I'm no holier or better than anybody else. But the one thing I'm tired of is bullshit.
Okay. Well, I will have to adamantly disagree with your assessment, but that's okay. People can be on opposite sides of things. And,
sure.
You know, and so on that one, we will close it out. Thank you for coming on, Sean. You have a good day, and you take care.
Thank you, Dale.
Well, I want to thank everyone for being here. I hope that there was a lot of back and forth in this one. This is not my normal style. I didn't realize that some of the subject matter was going to go the direction it did. And hopefully what you took out of that was not two guys arguing with each other, but two guys presenting ideas from different sides and trying to come to some kind of consensus, some kind of understanding from both sides. So hopefully that's what you took from it. Anyway, have a good day. God bless.
This is the future.